The crimson waters of Kepler 442b churned violently as Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her combat visor against the alien planet's twin suns. The evacuation mission had gone sideways 3 hours ago, when the Zephyrian fleet abandoned their ground forces without warning. Now she was alone, cut off from her unit, watching purple lightning split the orange sky above the flooding plains. The massive creature thrashing in the rising waters caught her attention immediately. At first glance, it looked like a lion crossed with a dragon, standing nearly 8 feet tall with golden fur that shimmered like liquid metal. 4 powerful legs kicked desperately against the current, while a magnificent mane floated around its elongated neck. Most striking were its eyes, intelligent, sapphire blue, and filled with something Maria recognized instantly as betrayal. This had to be one of the Kethmori, the lion-like alien race that ruled this sector. Maria had only seen them in diplomatic footage, never up close. They were supposed to be proud warriors, fierce and untouchable. Yet here was one drowning like any other creature in distress. The alien's movements were growing weaker. Each wave pushed it further from the crumbling shoreline toward the deeper channels where the current would claim it completely. Maria checked her ammunition. 3 plasma charges left, barely enough to fight her way to an extraction point. Getting involved would be suicide, but she couldn't just watch. "Damn it," she muttered, securing her weapon and diving into the alien waters. The liquid felt thick against her armor, almost syrupy. Her environmental suit systems immediately began filtering the water, warning her of high mineral content and unknown biological agents. She ignored the alerts and swam hard toward the struggling Kethmori. Up close, the alien was even more impressive. Its claws alone were longer than her forearm, and she could see rows of sharp teeth as it gasped for air. One swipe could easily tear through her armor. Yet something in those blue eyes told her this creature meant no harm. "Easy there, big guy," Maria said through her suit's external speakers, hoping the universal translator would work. "I'm here to help." The Kethmori's ears, large and pointed like a cat's, swiveled toward her voice. It stopped thrashing and studied her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. When it spoke, the voice was deep and melodious, carrying an accent she'd never heard before. "Human soldier, why do you risk yourself for me? Your species and mine are not allies." Maria wrapped her arms around the alien's massive torso, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the wet fur. "Because you're drowning, and I don't let people drown if I can help it." Together they fought against the current. The Kethmori was heavy, easily 600 pounds, but its natural buoyancy helped. Maria's suit provided additional propulsion as they slowly made their way toward a rocky outcropping that jutted above the waterline. "I am called Therakval of the Golden Pride," the alien said as they reached the rocks. "Son of the High Matriarch, bonded to Princess Zaralyn of the Silver Moon clan." "Sergeant Maria Santos, Earth Defense Corps," she replied, helping him pull himself onto the stone platform. "And if you're royalty, where's your rescue party?" Therakval's expression darkened. Water dripped from his mane as he settled into a crouch, his tail lashing with agitation. "There will be no rescue. The princess has declared me dead to preserve the honor of her house. She chose political alliance over loyalty." Maria felt a chill that had nothing to do with the alien water. "She abandoned you?" "The invasion failed. The human fleet proved stronger than anticipated. Rather than face the shame of defeat, she ordered her ships to withdraw. I was leading the ground assault when the retreat signal came. By the time I reached the landing zone, the last transport was already lifting off." His claws scraped against the rock. "I saw her ship myself. Princess Zaralyn watched me running toward them and ordered the bay doors sealed." The raw pain in his voice was unmistakable. Maria had seen plenty of battlefield betrayals, but this cut deeper. This wasn't about military strategy or political necessity. This was personal. "That's rough," she said simply. "But you're not dead yet." Therakval turned those piercing blue eyes on her again. "Why do you care, human? My people came to conquer your colony worlds. We have killed your soldiers. I myself have taken human lives in battle." Maria shrugged, checking her equipment. The water level was still rising, and they'd need to move soon. "War's war. But right now you're not my enemy. You're just someone who needs help." "I do not understand your species," Therakval said, shaking water from his mane. "My studies suggested humans were weak, emotional creatures driven by fear and greed. Yet you risk your life for an enemy who could easily kill you." "Maybe that's why we're winning this war," Maria replied with a grin. We do the unexpected. Thunder rolled across the sky as another storm front approached. The rocky outcropping was shrinking as the water continued to rise. Soon they'd be swimming again, but Maria had spotted something encouraging. The dark outline of a cave system in the cliff face behind them. "Can you make it to those caves?" she asked, pointing. Thirokval assessed the distance with a predator's calculation. "Yes, but the waters here are home to things far worse than drowning. The Sekthai lurk in these depths, creatures that hunt by electrical discharge. My people avoid these regions for good reason." As if summoned by his words, a pale blue glow began pulsing beneath the water's surface. Then another, and another. "Time to go," Maria said. The first Sekthai broke the surface just as Maria and Thirokval leaped from the rocks. The creature looked like a cross between a jellyfish and an electric eel, its translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Tendrils 20 feet long trailed behind it, crackling with visible electricity. "Swim fast and don't touch anything glowing," Maria shouted, her arms cutting through the water in powerful strokes. Thirokval moved like liquid lightning, his powerful limbs propelling him forward with grace that made Maria's military training look clumsy. But even his speed wasn't enough to outrun the Sekthai hunting pack. The creatures moved through the water like living lightning bolts, their electrical fields creating halos of charged particles. A tendril whipped past Maria's helmet, close enough that her suit's systems sparked. She could smell ozone and burning circuits. Her heads-up display flickered with warnings as secondary systems began failing. "The cave entrance is 50 meters ahead," Thirokval called, his voice carrying clearly through the water. "But there are 3 Sekthai between us and safety." Maria reached for her plasma rifle, then hesitated. Firing energy weapons near those electrical creatures could create a feedback loop that would fry them both. Instead, she grabbed the emergency flare gun from her belt. A simple chemical reaction that wouldn't interfere with the Sekthai's bioelectric field. "When I fire this, swim straight down, then angle up toward the cave," she ordered. "The flare will confuse their electrical senses." "That will leave you exposed to attack," Thirokval protested. "I'm smaller and faster underwater than you," Maria lied smoothly. "Just trust me." She fired the flare in a high arc over the hunting pack. The bright magnesium flame created exactly the distraction she'd hoped for. The Sekthai's electrical fields went haywire as they tried to process the sudden light source. Their coordinated hunting formation broke apart in confusion. Thirokval dove deep as instructed, his golden form disappearing into the murky depths. Maria waited a crucial second longer to ensure the creatures followed her movement instead of his, then kicked hard toward the surface. 2 Sekthai immediately converged on her position, their tendrils lashed out in perfect synchronization, but Maria's combat training kicked in. She twisted between the electrical streams, feeling the charge singe her armor. Her suit's power levels dropped to critical, but she kept swimming. The cave entrance yawned ahead like a hungry mouth. Maria could see Thirokval's glowing eyes waiting in the darkness beyond. Just a few more meters and they'd be safe from the waterbound predators. A tendril wrapped around her ankle. Electricity coursed through her body, overloading her suit's systems. Every muscle contracted at once, and Maria felt herself sinking as her equipment failed. The Sekthai began reeling her in, its beak-like mouth opening to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth. Then Thirokval was there. The massive alien warrior erupted from the cave entrance like a golden missile. His claws extended to their full length as he slammed into the Sekthai holding Maria. The creature's electrical discharge washed over him, but his species' natural resistance to energy weapons kept him conscious. "Release her," he roared, his claws tearing through the creature's gelatinous flesh. The Sekthai's tendril loosened just enough for Maria to break free. She kicked weakly toward the cave, her muscles still twitching from the electrical shock. Thirokval fought with savage efficiency, his claws and teeth making short work of the wounded predator. The other 2 Sekthai circled cautiously, recognizing a more dangerous opponent. Their electrical fields synchronized, creating a web of energy that trapped Thirokval between them, but the alien warrior didn't retreat. Instead, he did something Maria had never seen before. Thirokval began to sing. The sound was deep and harmonious, a battle hymn that resonated through the water itself. His mane flared with bioluminescent patterns Maria hadn't noticed before, and his eyes blazed with an inner fire. The song seemed to confuse the Sekthai, disrupting their electrical coordination. Using their momentary distraction, Thirokval grabbed Maria's unconscious form and powered toward the cave entrance. The Sekthai recovered quickly, but they were too late. The cave mouth was too narrow for their bulk, and they couldn't follow their prey into the air-filled chamber beyond. Inside the cave, Maria's suit system slowly rebooted. She found herself lying on dry stone, her armor smoking slightly from the electrical damage. Thirokval sat nearby, methodically cleaning his claws while keeping watch on the water below. "Thank you," she said simply. "You saved my life first," he replied. "Among my people, that creates a debt of honor. I am bound to protect you until that debt is repaid." Maria sat up slowly, testing her equipment. Her communications array was fried, and her suit's life support was running on backup power. She had maybe 12 hours of air in an alien atmosphere. "Looks like we're stuck together for a while." "This cave system extends deep into the mountain," Thirokval said. "There are thermal vents that provide warmth and fresh water. We can survive here until rescue arrives." "Assuming rescue comes at all," Maria pointed out. "My unit thinks I'm dead and your people have already written you off." Thirokval's tail lashed once, then settled. "Then we will find our own way out. But first tell me something, human. In the water when the Sekthai had you, you could have ordered me to save myself. Instead you remained silent. Why?" Maria considered the question while running diagnostics on her damaged systems. "Because that's not who we are. Humans don't abandon people. Not if we can help it. Even your enemies? You're not my enemy anymore. The moment you dove back to help me, that changed." She met his alien gaze steadily. "Question is, what happens when we get out of here? Your people and mine are still at war." Thirokval was quiet for a long moment, watching the blue glow of the Sekthai patrol the waters below. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight of decision. "Princess Zaralyn chose political convenience over honor. She abandoned me to preserve her alliance with the war faction. But you, a human soldier, risked everything to save an enemy." His claws scraped against stone. "Perhaps it is time I chose which side truly deserves my loyalty." 3 days passed in the cave system before they found the thermal vents Thirokval had mentioned. The journey deeper into the mountain revealed a network of tunnels that seemed almost artificial in their precision. Smooth walls curved in impossible angles, and bioluminescent moss provided just enough light to navigate. Maria's suit had adapted to the alien atmosphere better than expected. The air was thin but breathable, with oxygen levels comparable to high altitude on Earth. Her backup power would last another week if she was careful with the heating systems. "These tunnels weren't carved by water," she observed, running her hand along the seamless stone. "Someone built this place." Thirokval nodded, his enhanced senses picking up details Maria's equipment missed. "The old ones. My people have legends about them, a race that vanished long before we achieved spaceflight. They left structures like this across dozens of worlds. Convenient that we found their hideout," Maria said, though something about the tunnels made her uneasy. They were too perfect, too obviously designed for habitation. The thermal vents opened into a vast underground chamber filled with natural hot springs. Steam rose in lazy spirals toward a ceiling lost in shadows, and the air was warm enough that Maria could safely remove her helmet. The first breath of unfiltered alien air tasted of minerals and growing things. "Not bad for a prison," she admitted, settling beside one of the springs. The hot water felt incredible against her aching muscles. Thirokval had been unusually quiet since their conversation about loyalty. He spent hours staring into the deeper tunnels, his ears constantly swiveling to track sounds Maria couldn't hear. Now he approached the spring cautiously as if something troubled him. "We are not alone here," he said finally. Maria's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm. "Sekthai can't survive in air this thin." "Not Sekthai. Something else. Something that has been watching us since we entered these tunnels." His mane bristled with agitation. "I smell metal and ozone. Machinery that runs on power sources I don't recognize." Before Maria could respond, lights began activating throughout the chamber. Not the soft bioluminescence they'd grown accustomed to, but harsh white beams that revealed the true scope of their surroundings. The ceiling stretched hundreds of feet overhead, supported by pillars that looked like frozen lightning. And everywhere, carved into the walls and floor, were symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Welcome, travelers from the distant stars." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It spoke in perfect English, then repeated itself in what Maria assumed was Thirokval's native language. Both translations carried the same artificial quality that marked it as computer-generated. I am the curator of this facility. You have been classified as refugees seeking shelter from hostile environmental conditions. Sanctuary protocols have been activated. A section of the floor began to rise, revealing a platform that held equipment neither human nor Kethmori in design. Crystalline structures pulsed with internal light, connected by cables that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "What is that thing?" Maria whispered. Thirakval's hackles were fully raised now, and his claws had extended involuntarily. Every instinct screamed danger, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Old One technology. My people have encountered it before, but never anything this sophisticated. Your bio readings indicate stress responses typical of species encountering Old One archives for the first time." The curator continued conversationally. "Please be assured that this facility operates under strict non-interference protocols. You will not be harmed unless you attempt to damage critical systems." Maria approached the platform slowly, her scientific curiosity overriding her military caution. The crystalline structures were beautiful in a way that human eyes weren't designed to appreciate. Geometric patterns shifted and flowed within their depths, creating optical illusions that suggested vast complexity. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. The Old Ones believed that knowledge should be preserved and shared across all sentient species. This facility was designed to provide sanctuary to travelers in distress, regardless of their point of origin or political affiliations. The voice paused, and Maria had the distinct impression they were being scanned. "Your current conflict is noted in our databases. Human Kethmori hostilities began approximately 4 standard years ago over disputed territorial claims. Can you contact our respective governments?" Thirakval asked. "Arrange for extraction?" "Communications beyond this star system are restricted under galactic preservation protocols. However, this facility contains detailed information about both your species that may prove illuminating." The crystals pulsed brighter, and suddenly the air above the platform filled with holographic images. Maria saw herself as a child on Earth, then in military training, then fighting on distant worlds. But mixed with her human memories were images she'd never seen before. Kethmori cubs playing in golden grasslands, their parents teaching them to hunt, their first glimpses of the stars. "What is this?" she breathed. "Comparative xenopsychology data. Your species have far more in common than your governments acknowledge. Both evolved from pack hunters who developed agriculture and tool use within similar time frames. Both value loyalty, courage, and protection of family groups. Both have strong artistic traditions and complex social hierarchies." Thirakval stared at the images of human children playing games that looked remarkably similar to Kethmori coming-of-age rituals. "Our military briefings described humans as individualistic and selfish. And ours painted your people as savage and honor-obsessed," Maria added. "Guess propaganda works the same way on every species." "The current conflict was engineered by a third party," the curator announced matter-of-factly. "An entity that benefits from keeping both species weakened through constant warfare. Analysis of communication intercepts and supply chain data indicates outside manipulation of key diplomatic incidents." The holographic display shifted to show star charts and shipping manifests. Names and locations scrolled past too quickly to follow, but the pattern was clear. Someone had been playing both sides against each other. "Who?" Thirakval demanded, his voice a low growl. "The hegemony of infinite reaches, a coalition of species that maintains galactic stability through controlled conflict. They have managed 17 similar wars over the past millennium, always ensuring that neither side achieves decisive victory." Maria felt sick. All those dead soldiers, all those destroyed colonies, all for someone else's political games. How long have they been manipulating us? "Since first contact between your species. The initial territorial dispute was artificially escalated through falsified intelligence reports. Princess Zaralin's abandonment of Thirakval follows patterns consistent with hegemony. Psychological operations designed to break down honor, codes and create political instability." Thirakval's roar of rage echoed through the chamber. His claws scraped deep grooves in the stone floor as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. Not only had his beloved abandoned him, but she'd been manipulated into doing so by alien puppet masters. "Show us everything," Maria said grimly. "Every document, every communication, every piece of evidence you have. If we're going to stop this war, we need proof." "Warning," the curator replied. Accessing this information will classify you both as high-priority targets for hegemony elimination. Your survival probability will decrease significantly. Maria and Thirokval exchanged glances. She saw her own determination reflected in his alien features. They'd already been abandoned by their respective sides. They had nothing left to lose. Do it, they said in unison. The data download took 6 hours. During that time, Maria and Thirokval witnessed the systematic destruction of peace between their species through doctored communications, staged incidents, and carefully placed agents provocateurs. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. The hegemony maintains control through what they call managed opposition, the curator explained as files scrolled past. They identify emerging civilizations with military potential and engineer conflicts that prevent either side from developing beyond regional power. Status. Maria studied a communication intercept, showing Princess Zaralyn receiving direct orders from someone, identified only as the facilitator, the EI. Princess had been told that abandoning Thirokval would send a message of strength to the human forces, encouraging them to accept a negotiated surrender. She believed she was saving lives, Thirokval said quietly, his anger replaced by a deeper sadness. The facilitator convinced her that my sacrifice would end the war more quickly. Look at the timestamp, Maria pointed out. This message was sent 3 days before the battle. They planned your abandonment from the beginning. More files revealed the scope of the manipulation. Key battles had been allowed to proceed only when the hegemony deemed them strategically beneficial to their long-term plans. Peace negotiations had been sabotaged through carefully timed terrorist attacks that were actually false flag operations. Diplomatic personnel on both sides had been replaced with hegemony agents using advanced disguise technology. Your Admiral Chen's recent promotion came after the previous admiral died in a shuttle accident, the curator noted. Analysis of the wreckage indicates sabotage. The current admiral has been in hegemony employ for approximately 18 months. That explains the sudden shift in tactical doctrine, Maria muttered. Chen's been feeding our battle plans to your people while making sure we never win decisively. High Matriarch Veltara of my own people shows similar patterns. Her rise to power coincided with several convenient deaths among the peace faction leadership. Thirokval's claws scraped against stone. My own mother opposed her appointment to the War Council. The implications were staggering. Both species had been dancing to alien puppet strings for years. Their leaders either corrupted or eliminated when they threatened to make real peace. Every battle, every death, every moment of suffering had been calculated to maintain a perfect balance of mutual destruction. We have to warn them, Maria said. Both governments need to see this evidence. The hegemony has protocols for containing information leaks, the curator warned. Your respective intelligence services have been compromised. Any attempt to communicate through official channels will be intercepted and neutralized. Then we go around official channels, Thirokval suggested. There are still honorable leaders among my people, warriors who value truth over political convenience. If we can reach them directly. Same on the human side, Maria agreed. Field commanders who've seen too much to believe the party line anymore. Problem is getting this information to them without the hegemony finding out. The curator processed their request for several minutes before responding. This facility possesses Old One communication technology that operates on quantum entanglement principles. It cannot be intercepted or blocked by conventional means. However, using it will reveal this location to hegemony forces. You will have approximately 72 hours before they arrive in sufficient numbers to assault the facility. Maria and Thirokval looked at each other across the alien machinery. They both understood what the curator was offering, a chance to save their species at the cost of their own lives. There's another option, the curator continued. Old One technology includes defensive systems. This facility was designed to withstand assault from multiple starfleets. However, activating those systems would require conscious operators. The automated systems alone are insufficient. You're asking us to stay and fight, Maria said. I am providing information about available options. The choice remains yours. Thirokval stood and began pacing, his predatory grace obvious even in the confines of the chamber. If we send the evidence and retreat, the hegemony will simply eliminate the recipients and blame their deaths on continued hostilities. But if we stay and hold this position, we become a symbol, Maria finished. Human and Kethamori working together against a common enemy. Proof that cooperation is possible. The psychological impact would be significant. The curator agreed. Historical analysis suggests that your species responds strongly to symbolic gestures of sacrifice and unity. The image of former enemies becoming allies often catalyzes broader social change. Maria checked her equipment one final time. Her suit was functioning at maybe 60% efficiency. Her weapons were running low on ammunition, and she was trapped on an alien world with no hope of rescue. By any reasonable military standard, she should be focused on survival and escape. But reasonable military standards hadn't accounted for alien puppet masters orchestrating a galactic war. "I didn't sign up to be a symbol," she said finally. "I signed up to protect people. If staying here gives our species a chance to see the truth and end this war, then that's protecting a lot more people than I could save any other way." Thyrokval stopped pacing and fixed her with that intense blue stare. "You understand that we will likely die here? The hegemony will not allow us to survive as witnesses to their deception." "Yeah, I figured that out." Maria shrugged. "But like you said, I'm already supposed to be dead. Might as well make it count for something." "Then we are agreed. We send the evidence to both our peoples and prepare for siege." His mane flared with bioluminescent patterns that Maria was beginning to recognize as expressions of determination. "I warn you, human, I have never fought alongside an alien before. I may not be the most reliable ally." Maria grinned and extended her hand. "I've never fought alongside a giant talking lion either. Guess we'll figure it out together." Thyrokval stared at her outstretched hand for a moment, then carefully clasped it with his massive paw. His claws were retracted, but Maria could feel the incredible strength in his grip. "The transmission will require detailed recipient lists," the curator announced. "Please provide the names and locations of individuals most likely to act on this information, despite personal risk." Maria and Thyrokval began compiling their lists. Field commanders who'd questioned orders, scientists who'd noticed inconsistencies in intelligence reports, journalists who'd been asking uncomfortable questions, people on both sides who might be brave enough to stand up to their own governments. As they worked, neither mentioned the obvious truth hanging between them. They were about to start a revolution that would either save both their species or get them branded as traitors by everyone they'd ever served. But some fights were worth the risk. The quantum transmissions went out simultaneously to 47 individuals across human and Kethamori space. Each recipient received a complete data package containing irrefutable evidence of hegemony manipulation, along with a personal message from either Maria or Thyrokval explaining the situation. "Transmission complete," the curator announced. "Quantum signatures detected by hegemony monitoring stations. Estimated time to response: 18 hours for advanced scouts, 68 hours for main assault force." Maria was already checking the facility's defensive systems. The old ones had built well. Energy barriers that could deflect capital ship weapons, automated turrets with targeting systems beyond anything in her experience, and shield generators powered by the planet's core itself. But the technology was ancient, and some systems showed signs of degradation. "Can you repair the damaged components?" she asked the curator. "Negative. Repair protocols require materials not available on this world. Current defensive efficiency is estimated at 73% of original specifications." Thyrokval emerged from one of the deeper tunnels, his expression grim. "I have found weapons caches. Old One infantry equipment designed for beings of various physiologies. Some may be adaptable to our needs." The weapons room was a marvel of alien engineering. Devices that looked like crystalline sculptures transformed into various configurations at the touch of specific control surfaces. Energy weapons that adjusted their output based on the user's biological parameters. Armor that flowed like liquid metal before hardening into perfect protection. "This stuff is thousands of years ahead of anything either of our species has developed," Maria breathed, testing an Old One rifle. The weapon felt alive in her hands, its neural interface connecting directly to her targeting instincts. "The Old Ones were a peaceful species," the curator explained. "These weapons were developed only after they encountered races like the hegemony, beings who viewed benevolence as weakness to be exploited. What happened to them?" Thyrokval asked while adjusting a suit of flowing armor to his leonine physique. "They transcended, uploaded their consciousness into quantum storage matrices, and departed for higher dimensional space." They left these facilities as gifts for younger species who might face similar challenges. The first responses to their transmissions began arriving within 6 hours. Commander Sarah Mitchell of the human destroyer Resilience confirmed receipt of the data and reported that several other ship captains were independently verifying the intelligence. War leader Kethval the Unbending, Thirokval's own uncle, sent word that the evidence had reached the traditional warrior clans and was causing significant unrest within Kethmori leadership. But other responses were more ominous. Admiral Chen had issued orders for Maria's arrest on charges of treason and collaboration with enemy forces. Princess Zara Lynn had declared Thirokval a madness-touched exile, spreading lies to avoid his shameful abandonment. "The hegemony is moving quickly to discredit us," Maria observed, reading the intelligence summaries. "They're painting this as desperate propaganda from 2 soldiers who've lost their minds." "Some will believe that," Thirokval admitted. "But others will remember that I have never lied in the service of politics. Honor debt runs deep among my people. Those who know me will at least consider the evidence." The curator's sensors detected the first hegemony ships entering the system 36 hours after transmission. 3 vessels of unknown configuration, moving with the fluid grace that marked truly advanced technology. They established orbit around Kepler 442b and began detailed scans of the surface. "They are searching for this facility," the curator reported. "Stealth protocols are holding, but concentrated scans will eventually penetrate our shielding." Maria and Thirokval had spent the intervening time learning to work together as a combat team. Their fighting styles were completely different. She relied on tactics, technology, and precision strikes while he favored direct assault and overwhelming force. But they'd found a rhythm that maximized both approaches. Human agility and Kethmori strength make an effective combination, Thirokval observed after a particularly successful simulation run. "Your species thinks faster than mine, but we are more durable. Together we cover each other's weaknesses." "Maybe that's why the hegemony wanted us fighting each other," Maria suggested. "We're stronger as allies than either species would be alone." The full hegemony fleet arrived on schedule, 27 ships ranging from small scout vessels to massive dreadnoughts. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with an oily iridescence that hurt to look at directly. Energy signatures suggested weapons technology centuries beyond what humans or Kethmori could deploy. "Fleet composition indicates serious intent," the curator noted with typical understatement. "They have brought sufficient firepower to sterilize the planet's surface." "Good thing we're underground," Maria said with forced cheerfulness. The bombardment began at dawn. Hegemony weapons carved trenches across the landscape, boiling away the floodwaters and exposing the rocky substrate beneath. But their targeting remained imprecise. They knew the facility existed somewhere in this region, but couldn't pinpoint its exact location. Then, the messages started arriving from space. "This is Battle Leader Kethmor of the Pride Ship Starfire," came the first transmission, on Kethmori military frequencies. "We have reviewed the evidence provided by Thirokval of the Golden Pride. We stand ready to assist in operations against the true enemy." USS Resilience reporting followed, Commander Mitchell's voice on human channels. "Task Force 7 has gone rogue. We're moving to support Sergeant Santos and prove the truth of her intelligence." More ships arrived throughout the day, human vessels and Kethmori warships, many showing signs of hasty departure from their normal patrol routes. The opposing fleets faced each other across the orbit of Kepler 442b, while the planet burned below. "Attention human and Kethmori forces," came a new voice, speaking in perfect standard for both languages. "This is High Commissioner Zethval of the Hegemony of Infinite Reaches. You are interfering with lawful peacekeeping operations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of opposing galactic stability." The response came from an unexpected source. Princess Zara Lynn herself, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "This is Princess Zara Lynn of the Silver Moon clan. We have reviewed the evidence of hegemony manipulation. We know what you made us do to our own people. We know what you made me do to—" Her voice broke slightly. "The truth changes everything. Stand down your forces or face the combined wrath of both our species." In the depths of the Old One facility, Thirokval listened to his former beloved's declaration with complex emotions playing across his alien features. Maria put a hand on his shoulder in wordless support. "She found her honor again," he said quietly. "Perhaps there is hope for us all." Above them, the real battle was about to begin. The space battle raged for 3 hours above Kepler 442b. Human and Kethmori ships fought side by side for the first time in their species' history, their combined tactics proving surprisingly effective against hegemony forces. But the outcome was never really in doubt. The aliens' technological advantage was simply too great. Hegemony forces have broken through the Allied defensive line, the curator reported as explosions lit the sky overhead. Landing forces detected. Estimated strength: 200 combat units with siege equipment. Maria and Thirokval took their positions at the facility's main entrance. The Old One defenses had revealed themselves as the enemy approached. Crystalline barriers rising from the ground like frozen lightning, energy turrets emerging from hidden alcoves, and sensor networks that could track individual heartbeats from orbit. "Remember the plan," Maria said, checking her weapon one final time. "We hold them here as long as possible. Every minute gives our people up there more time to coordinate their counterattack." "Understood." Thirokval's mane was fully flared now. Bioluminescent patterns flickering in sequence that Maria had learned meant battle readiness. "It has been an honor fighting beside you, human." "Same here, Furball." Maria grinned despite the circumstances. "Now let's show these puppeteers what happens when their toys refuse to dance." The first wave of hegemony troops descended on repulsor platforms that ignored the planet's gravity. They moved with mechanical precision, their armor gleaming like black oil. Energy weapons fired in perfect synchronization, creating overlapping fields of destruction that should have overwhelmed any defensive position. But the Old One barriers held. Ancient energy fields absorbed and redirected the incoming fire, while automated turrets responded with weapons that turned matter into pure light. The attackers' perfect formations shattered against defenses that had been old when their species was still learning to use fire. "Second wave incoming," the curator announced. "They are adapting their tactics to account for defensive capabilities. This time the hegemony forces came on foot, using personal shield generators and electronic countermeasures to neutralize the facility's automated defenses. They moved like liquid shadow, their forms shifting and flowing in ways that suggested they weren't entirely biological. Maria opened fire with her Old One rifle, each shot precisely placed to exploit weaknesses in the enemy's shield coverage. Beside her, Thirokval launched himself into hand-to-hand combat with the fluid grace of a born predator. His claws tore through alien armor, while his strength allowed him to literally throw enemies off the mountainside. But for every hegemony soldier they dropped, 2 more took its place. And the enemies were learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics to counter human marksmanship and Kethmori ferocity. "They're pushing us back," Maria called out, falling back to the second defensive line as her ammunition ran low. "Agreed. But they are paying dearly for every meter." Thirokval's golden fur was streaked with his own blood, and the strange ichor that served the same function in hegemony physiology. "How many do you think we have killed?" "Enough to matter," Maria replied, triggering the collapse of the entrance tunnel. Ancient machinery responded to her commands, sealing the facility's main access point behind tons of rock. "They'll have to dig us out now." The siege continued for another day. Hegemony forces worked with mechanical efficiency to clear the tunnel, while their orbital support ships pounded the mountain with increasingly powerful weapons. But the Old One facility had been built to withstand far worse than anything the hegemony could deploy. Deep inside the complex, Maria and Thirokval monitored the space battle through the curator's sensors. The Allied fleet was losing badly, but they were making the hegemony pay for every victory. More importantly, news of the battle was spreading throughout both human and Kethmori space. "Emergency councils have been called on both sides," the curator reported. "Your evidence has reached the highest levels of government. There are reports of hegemony agents being arrested and interrogated." "Too little, too late for us," Maria observed. She was down to her sidearm in emergency rations, while Thirokval was favoring his left side, where a hegemony energy weapon had burned through his armor. "Perhaps, but not too late for our species." Thirokval settled beside her in the facility's command center, his massive bulk somehow comforting in the alien chamber. "Whatever happens here, we have given them the truth. They can choose what to do with it." The final assault came without warning. Hegemony forces broke through the sealed entrance using weapons that simply erased matter from existence. They poured into the facility in overwhelming numbers, their forms shifting between solid and energy states as they adapted to each defensive measure. Maria and Thirocville made their final stand in the curator's core chamber, surrounded by the crystalline matrices that contained the accumulated wisdom of the old ones. They fought with desperate efficiency, each covering the other's blind spots while the ancient defenses slowly failed around them. "It appears this is the end," the curator observed with artificial calm. "Do you have any final messages you wish transmitted?" Maria looked at Thirocville, seeing her own determination reflected in his alien features. They'd come so far from that moment in the floodwaters, when she'd decided to save a drowning enemy. Now they were something neither species had words for, true allies bound by choice rather than biology. "Yeah," she said, raising her weapon as the hegemony forces closed in. "Tell them that humans and Kethmori can fight together. Tell them that when we stand united, we're stronger than any puppet master. Tell them," Thirocville added, his claws extending for the last time, "that honor matters more than politics. That some bonds cannot be broken by manipulation or fear." The curator processed their words for a microsecond, then transmitted them across quantum space to every receiver in both species' territories. The message reached human colonies and Kethmori Pride worlds simultaneously, carrying the voices of two soldiers who'd chosen unity over hatred. Above Kepler 442b, the tide of battle suddenly shifted. Princess Zaralin's flagship, the Silver Star, broke from formation and rammed directly into the hegemony command vessel. The explosion lit up the system like a new sun, and in that moment of sacrifice, human and Kethmori forces struck as one. The hegemony fleet, deprived of central coordination, began to falter. Individual ships found themselves overwhelmed by enemies who fought with desperate fury, their tactics enhanced by shared intelligence and mutual support. Within hours, the alien forces were in full retreat, but in the depths of the Old One facility, Maria Santos and Thirocville of the Golden Pride never learned of their victory. They died as they had lived in those final days, together, facing impossible odds with unshakable courage. The curator, following its final protocols, sealed the facility and transmitted one last message to the Allied fleet above. It contained the complete archives of Old One knowledge, including defensive technologies that would ensure neither species would ever again fall victim to manipulation by more advanced civilizations. Years later, when the war was over and the hegemony had been driven from known space, they built a monument on that mountain. It showed a human woman and a Kethmori warrior standing side by side. Their weapons lowered, their faces turned toward the stars. The inscription, written in both human script and Kethmori honor marks, read simply, "Here stood those who chose unity over hatred, truth over convenience, and courage over safety. Their sacrifice lit the way to peace." And every year, on the anniversary of their deaths, representatives from both species would gather at the monument to remember the day their war ended, not through conquest or surrender, but through the simple act of one soldier refusing to let another drown.